curious about that little trio. Of good Dharma friends. So let's have a moment of quiet and think about what your practice is doing or not doing, what you are doing or not doing with your practice. Maybe one suggestion is consider what's going quite well with your practice. It's always good to lift ourselves out of criticizing and judging. So something going well with your practice on or off the cushion, and something you feel challenged by. And you may or may not ask a question about that, but it's good to just consider those things. So we'll take a couple minutes of silence. What's going well with your practice, and what is your current challenge? Okay, so the floor is open. I don't know if any written questions got put in the basket. None? Okay. We're going to just slowly get used to that method. So the microphone is passed around for the benefit of those on streaming. So one thing about the microphone is you need to hold it fairly close to your mouth. If you hold it far away, it doesn't pick up so well. And push the button till the green light comes on. Okay.
And if the green light's on, we're good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
you're good anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about transcending I? You know, that there's no, you had mentioned earlier today, you were talking about that there's no separate, you know, I from the rest of everything and everybody. But could you speak to a little bit about that?
Yeah, tell me what you think already. No trap, it's not a
right,
trap.
No, I get it.
But
I get
just you know, people have read things and.
Yeah, so it's real easy, and you know, in this society, and I'm sure many other societies, and actually being a separate, you know, human being itself.
There you go.
Right, that it's easy to feel separate, right, and it's encouraged to be an individual. So it's really, really easy to kind of fall into that and separate. And I notice with myself is that. For a very long time, you know, I'd fallen into that trap, and you know, now I'm becoming a little bit more connected. But it's easy for me to fall back into it, and to as I get more individualistic and more about myself, I think less about, you know, others and more about, you know, what's going to help me. But then as I kind of re-break that down again and, feel more connected, I feel more compassionate, towards others and towards myself. So it's kind of, getting, what are the things, what are the things that connect us? Some of that would be interesting to hear. So, how are you connected? So I've been thinking about that, recently. Like, obviously, you couldn't live by yourself, or you couldn't, under certain circumstances, you couldn't live by yourself, for a long time. So I'd be interested to hear about just kind of the practical, maybe some of the practical and a little bit, of the practice, but some practical, things about how we're all connected.
Yeah, thank you. It's an amazing question. Partly because in the teachings, it's the fundamental question. So let's start with that. We've got, I was going to say we have 3 problems, but we have a lot more. But in the teachings, they come down to the fundamental ignorance of the separate, inherently existent I, me, mine. That fundamental ignorance is at the bottom and the basis of all suffering. On top of that, once we are convinced of our I-ness, which we all are, right? Don't you all feel there's an I? Anybody not feel that? I want you to come up here and educate all of us. So it's natural that we feel this. In the Buddhist worldview, we've been cultivating it endlessly till this life of meeting the Dharma, which says, oh, that's ignorance. And it's like, wow, really? So this fundamental ignorance of separate anything, I, the table, the room, the persons, it just throws us into a constant hallucination. That's kind of scary to realize. Lama Zopa used to say, we don't need to do drugs, dear ones. You're already hallucinating all the time. And, no, that was Lama Yeshe. Anyway, so based on that mistake, the first mistake, then we pile on attachment to what I want, and we run after it. And we even will run over people to get it. I'm saying that figuratively, but emotionally, even literally, to get what I want. The first cookie, I just kind of move you aside, or the last cookie, right? It's just a symbol of it. The job promotion, I might do unethical things like lie about myself, lie about the other to get that. So that's the attachment side based on that fundamental ignorance. On the other side is the aversion side, where we're always pushing away. I don't like it, I don't want it, I don't like them. And based on that, we also will do many unethical things. Even harm others, talk badly about them, manipulate, and even go to war against them. We also go to war out of attachment towards our side, but we go to war also about my happiness depends on getting rid of those people. So in those ways, that's the basic method by which we continue suffering. We just spin the wheel of suffering daily, moment by moment in our minds. So you already pointed out something about our deep connection, the way that I cannot exist without the so-called other. which is not other. Shantideva talks about it this way in the Bodhisattva way of life. If your foot steps on a thorn, your hand reaches down and pulls it out. Your hand doesn't say, I'm a hand, not a foot, so I don't care about that foot. And he's pointing out in a number of stanzas in that text how the other person is the foot and you are the hand and you're one body. So he keeps giving metaphors in that book of ways to think about this interconnection. Another one is, I call myself I. Do you call me I? When you look at Zopa, do you say I? No, what do you say? You or she or Zopa. I call you those words. You, she. Who's right? All the people in this room look at this set of aggregates and say she and you. I'm the only one that says I. Who's right? 7.5 billion people look at this set of aggregates, which is another way to work with this, calling this body and mind and emotions a set of aggregates. There's even a translation that says heap of aggregates. That's what we're made up of, aggregates. Bone, skin, muscles, blood. Shantideva again takes one who reads this text, which is in our bookstore, through a quite interesting meditation on peeling your body apart and throwing it out and looking at just what is this? Skin, take it off, throw it down there. Muscles, blood, guts, bones. What else is it? Energy, fluids. But we say, my body, so precious. And I will kill you even if you try to kill my body. But what is it? We have to do some really deep meditations on these to counteract the long habit brought life after life of no, there's a separate self. Lama Michael talks about give up all personal territory. The first time he said that, I thought, no, I am not. I'm in the Dharma, but I'm not giving up all personal territory. That's crazy. But you take the view. It doesn't mean don't set personal boundaries or protect yourself. It's not extreme like that. You take the view of who's here? Who's this person? Just asking that. There's a body. There's emotions. How fast do they go? There's thoughts. Go even faster. Even you think, no, I have the emotion anger and it's around all the time. No, it isn't. It's a brand new anger every moment. It's not the same one you had 3 minutes ago. If it was, it'd be sitting there like a block of wood that you could not change. Because of this impermanence, ephemeral way that this heap of aggregates is, we can change and we can discover our already internal Buddha nature. And the process toward trying that is the manifestation of that Buddha nature. So there's many, many ways to kind of challenge this I. Geshe Kelsang, one of my other teachers, used to say to us, every time you move into a different room, you are a different I. Try that on. I am now Zopa sharing Dharma in this room. But last night I was at my daughter-in-law Chelsea's house playing with grandchildren. That's all gone. Totally gone. Now there's just this moment. Who am I now? I can't be doing this if you're not here and there's no speaker and there's no Dharma and there's been no teachers and there's been no question. So how can I pull a separate I out of that? Does that kind of go toward what you're looking at, Vince?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. It gives me, well, that's helpful and gives me something to work with, but you'll forgive me if I ask that question several more times in an open forum like this.
I hope you ask it 1,000 times a day. Really, that is one of the main ways to meditate. I am going over to KCC. How can I go? I have to go on a road with a car. I don't know how to make a road or a car. I have no idea. I only get here if no one runs into my car. I have no control over those people. They might run into my car. I might run into them. It's constant. And one of our Dharma jobs is to constantly see that, the constancy of the interdependence. Who made my shawl? I'll never meet that person. Or I might meet them and not know they did it. But I can't be here right now. Part of I being here right now is with this shawl, with this meditation bench, with this cup. I don't know how to make any of that stuff. Yet it comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. And one way to, another step toward this is to practice constant gratitude. You turn the shower on in the morning. Somebody is at the waterworks, the electric company. You have someone who built the building you're in. I don't know how to do any of that, yet I'm benefiting from it. So this constant gratitude starts towards this, oh, I see, this was given, this was given, this was given. I give back. It's like this. I think Dora wants to share something, please.
Just a couple of things came to mind. One is, it's intriguing. Ken McLeod is, seems like he's saying, I would say, he says that what all we have is our awareness and our experience. So when you're quiet, in meditation, that's easier to look at. And when so it's when you look at really what you have, and then say, okay, where in my experience is the I? And just looking for it is something that we do that helps to get to what all these things that Zopa has mentioned is another possibility. And in the more active mode, compassion, in some ways it seems like we often talk about, so you have the wisdom of this recognition of not having a self. We talk about, there's the wisdom side, and then we talk about the compassion side. And that we need both of those things, or both of those things are what come out of progressing on the path. But it's interesting that interrelationship between the two. So the compassion side, if we do things mentally and verbally and physically to help others and with concern for others, then that, in those moments, we're abandoning our self-centered, the things Zopa was saying, the attachment and aversion and getting things that I need and don't want, and all that sorted. But now, doing things for others and considering other situations, then we're slowly, putting drops of water on the other side, where we're not, we're having moments where we're not just being self-centered, and that helps us get closer to how things really are, this interconnectedness that Zopa was talking about. So I think holding these views and doing both the sort of meditations and reflections, and then actually the compassionate and loving kindness oriented activities are ways to work also.
Yeah, thanks, Dora. It reminds me of something. When we do those loving, compassionate activities, even they may be hard for us to do, we generally experience some joy because we helped someone. And that joy is another huge connector. Like we did something difficult, but we see it brought joy, and then we feel joy. There's no separation between that joy. Say someone on the street, you purchase a Street Roots paper, which I do, and then I try to stop and talk to the person a little bit because I enjoy it. And then there's a kind of a joy in that connection, It's like interesting, Not so different. There's this shared thing, the most core part of ourselves. Okay, one more, and then we'll see if other follow.
I don't mean to monopolize this, so we can end it whenever you
You're
want.
Okay.
Okay. But it just occurred to me that was my question was a very what I consider to be a very personal question, and on something that I think is at the core of for me, something that will help me expand and be better and be more connected. So that's why I asked the question. But as I was listening, there's this kind of your answer. You're looking at me, Dora's looking at me, but at the same time we're sharing this. We're sharing this with everybody, and so there's this kind of I'm asking for me, but this is kind of being spread out throughout the Sangha and everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Nice insight. And one thing just to enhance that insight that I try to do now, but I sort of forget, before I ask a question, I try and say, may this question be beneficial for everyone here and afar. So we can do these aspirations in our mind that keep reminding us of this connection to all those beings. As I read that one, that quote, friend, enemy, stranger, may I understand, those are just my labels. Someone I think is my enemy, someone else loves them and would say, this is my best friend. So who's right? One teacher used to say, who's the most important person in the room? Just ponder that for a while. Can't find. If you really look, can't find. The I will say me, as my 4-year-old grandson said when I asked him just for fun. He said, well, Mommy and Daddy told me I am. And I just loved it because he was so pleased with himself. And that points out something, that at that young age, you want to help build a healthy ego like that. You don't want to say, well, there's no you, you know. I just, you know, not ready yet, right? We have to have this healthy sense of self. And it was so lovely when he just was like, it's me. I said, yeah, cool. Yeah, so we'll go over here. Mary.
So just to tag on to that, with the kids downstairs, sometimes, I think particularly after singing sometimes, or depending on what we're talking about, we'll try to stress that inside yourself, there's always that safe place inside, and you can always go there. So, I mean, I think it's okay to have for them to think important, because that's important.
Yes.
Is to feel safe inside yourself. And that's been helpful for me, too, to remember when things are difficult, is there's that safe place. So.
Yeah. And I've noticed you doing that down there, and it's so important. And it's important for us to remember, not just with children, but teenagers, and even some of us who are called adults, that sometimes how do I want to say, we need to be good teachers to our own selves. So sometimes contemplating this lack of self, this like selflessness, is quite helpful. And then we can start falling towards what's called nihilism. If there's no self, whoa, the vast abyss opens up. And I tell this story on myself. Once I was at a winter retreat at Shrivasti Abbey, and I decided I was going to do this practice suggested by Jeffrey Hopkins in his book on emptiness, which is everything you look at, say, I'm wrong about that, you know, trying to pop yourself out of this hallucination. So I did that for about 4 days, you know, with what thoughts I would have. Or it's connected to another good, it's a good practice, but I overdid and felt pretty crazy. And a friend of mine there, one of the nuns, noticed, even in silence, that I was kind of going down into the depths of depression, which I didn't quite notice. And she pulled me aside and she said, Zopa, what's going on with you? And I said, well, I'm really intent on this breaking through the self, and I'm just using this mantra, if I'm wrong about that, no, I don't know that. There's no I here. And she said, whoa, time for some bodhicitta, time for some compassion practice. Just like Dora said, I was running toward the wisdom side, and I had forgotten to be kind to myself and others, and I was suddenly getting so withdrawn. And so we have to, you know, they call those the two wings of the bird. The method, the compassion side, and the wisdom, the no-self side. We need to go back and forth. So it's also good medicine for ourselves. There is a thing that happens in Dharma centers and monasteries where someone comes with a wounded ego, in other words, feeling really bad about themselves and looking externally for to feel good, and they can run into these meditations and get in a lot of difficulty. And so that's why it's good to have teachers that guide us in those longer times, but we can be teachers to ourselves. What I'm touching on is a long struggle in Buddhism about eternalism versus nihilism. It's the constant debate that, yes, we need to move toward the wisdom of no self, but we also need to understand we are in a relative world. We function here. Appearances are constant, and how we deal with them is exceedingly important. We need to practice ethics generosity, patience, etc. Because as Dora was pointing out, those help us eventually see the interconnectedness. So we can work those back and forth, like they say a potter does with clay. The wisdom side can get too dry and the thing can crack. But if you keep throwing in water of, oh, it's so nice, just be nice, 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 then it just turns into mush, right? There's no pot there. So we have to work those back and forth. Remember always to do the three methods that the Buddha taught. Study. So read some books. Read good Dharma. If you're wondering about what to read, come up after or ask some other friends here. People here have read widely, and that bookstore's full of wisdom and compassion. So read, then contemplate. That is, I read this, just like you did this morning with your question, Vince. You contemplated and went, self, now, how do I get at that? Contemplate, and then meditate. Drop it all. Drop all the conceptions. They'll come, they'll go, but just be in the experience of the moment, which, as Dora said, that's all we have. We miss it because we're clinging to the past and planning the future. We miss this moment. When we don't miss it, it's so fun. It's so alive, right? Look at this incredible moment. Whoops, it's gone. But then there's another one. Okay, other questions?
You asked us at the start to take a look at what's going well in our practice and where the challenges are. And when I looked, I realized that the answer to both is the same thing.
Oh, nice.
Right now. Kind of the theme in my shamatha for the last month or so has been really just resting with my direct experience, like being present for what is unfolding and letting go of all of the commentary and the judgment. Like, it still arises, but just being able to sit with it and relate to it like it's a river, Yeah. It's just flowing past. It's just one more thing that arises. But then on the mornings when I wake up and I don't want to practice, I tell myself some story about how busy my life is and how it'll be so much better if I just take that hour and I sit and get caught up on the news and have a nice cup of coffee and just have a little quiet time for myself. And when I push on that, when I look at it, like what's really going on there, because if I reflect on my experience of meditation, it's always better when I sit and I rest with my experience, even the things that are difficult. Like the potency is drained out of them if I am just with them instead of in this place of avoiding them, refusing to look, or feeding them with some kind of energy. So when I really look at that impulse to not go and practice, it feels to me like there's something there about, like, today I'm just not willing to be with myself, to be with my experience as it is. And it feels so perverse, like, because conceptually I can reflect on my experience in the past and know the very best thing I can do for myself, for others, for my day, even on an ordinary level of managing my stress and my worldly concerns, is to go upstairs and sit down and do my practice.
And I'm not gonna.
And And yet this
Yeah.
thing arises in me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be with myself. And it's so weird. So anything you can offer on that, I would
Well,
appreciate.
Yeah. First of all, good on you. You are seeing a ton of and experiencing it. You know, every time you bring things to Lama Michael or Venerable Children, they'll often say, and yay, you're seeing it. You know, it's the beginning of everything to see it. So the only thing I could say that I have tried, and not so successfully, I have the same kind of pattern, is to say, okay, I'll just sit 3 minutes with that part that's rising, that I don't want, the perverse part. That's who we don't want to sit with. It's like sitting with, you know, they say a demon, you know. But there's so many stories about inviting the demon in. Geshe Kelsang used to always say to us 2 things. He'd say, when they show up, set the table and bring them in for tea. Sit with them. Hello. And the other one he would say that really helped me, let it dance before you. Let it just dance. Let it say anything. See, we too often try to clamp it down because we're averse. So we can see, I am so averse. We could even say, hi, I'm not glad you're here, but here's some tea. You know, that's what, was it Milarepa that came back to the cave 3 times and the demons were in there, or was it Atisha? I can't remember. Yeah, so, you know, one of these fabulous meditators, the story goes, meditating, feeling really good, like I've made it somewhere. That's always danger. As Geshe used to say, watch out, you puff up. Watch out, anytime you puff up. I love that phrase, I'm puffing up. So this meditator left the cave just to go out and maybe have a nice stroll or something. Came back and the cave was full of demons who had wrecked the altar and throwing things around, partying hardy, you know. And let's say it's Milarepa was like, oh my God, I got to get these people out of here, these demons out of here. Okay, first mistake, I got to get them out of here. Because who are they? They're in your own mind. How are you going to get them out? Out where? Is there an in and an out with these critters? So he first starts trying to get them out, you know, and doing magic spells because he had lots of black and white magic, and they just grew bigger, which is what happens. And then he said, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to generate compassion. Okay. And he sits down and does sort of a fake it compassion, like, okay, hi, it's okay if you stay, but I really want you out, but it's okay. And they just grow bigger. And then he got it. It's like, I can't fake it. I got to really, truly see these are in my own heart. I welcome them in order to stop their suffering, which is my own suffering. And then he really said, I love you, you can stay. And poof, of course, they disappeared because it's his own mind, heart. So this is your own mind doing this. So just, yeah. But one thing is, don't hop over and try to be with it. First be with the aversion. That was something when I learned, it was like, oh, I'm missing a step. I need to be with, I don't like this, and you are perverse, And I'm judging myself as perverse, and I don't like that either. And just be there with that. And eventually you'll see there's nothing there but a bunch of thoughts, habits of thought. The habit of thought that it's better to spend an hour with the news, oh my God, than to sit and send loving kindness around the world. But you already own that conceptually you can see it. And then it reminds me of a time I asked Kempo Sultram when I was really new to the Dharma, and he was, KCC invited him, and he spoke at PSU. I don't know when that was. I just barely had connected, and I asked a question. I said, how do I increase my discipline? Because I thought the question was discipline, make myself. And he said, increase your compassion. And I felt like that was a koan for a while. Like, how could my compassion? But then I got it. It's like, if I really see suffering, my own and others, I really experience it, and I really experience what you described, that the practice helps. If I listen to news for an hour, it does not help. My whole self gets, and those are what I carry out in the world. If I want suffering to end, that's what gets us to the cushion and keeps us going during the day off the cushion. So marvelous question, Sally. Anything to add?
I wish I had.
You wish you had.
I wish I had a solution.
Yeah, well, we're all, let's just say, how many struggle with that issue? Look around. It's, huge amounts. Not everyone, because we're all different, but yeah, this is what we're working on and what we're helping one another with. So let's dedicate this discussion and continue to help each other. We rely on this Sangha and the Sangha of those who have had many realizations. We are lucky. By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state. Thank you. Come back at 6:30.